Ford KA 2013, believe it's a 1.1 petrol. We're just doing the brakes and the shock absorbers. You've just got me at this stage. We're gonna do both side shocks, both sides disc and both side brakes. We've replaced this side and just putting back this side. I thought I might as well record it and just give you a quick breakdown of what I'm doing. Obviously there's a new shock absorber, as you can see. I might as well give you a rundown of what I've done, because I'm about to go and do the same on the other side. Shock absorber fastens to the hub here with these two nuts and bolts. We've got a 17mm nut. I think that's 15mm on the end of the bolt. You can see the two bolts here, they hold the hub, so you have to remove them. That's not the first thing. First thing you'd want to probably do, well, I've obviously removed the caliper because I'm doing the disc and pads as well. But basically everything that's attached to this strut needs to be removed. So you've got an attachment there where the brake hose sits in. Just remove that little clip, pull that rubber dongle out, similar to this one, but it's bigger. That's for the anti-lock brake, and that's for the ABS. So remove that. Remove these two nuts. You need to remove the drop link as well. So what I did do, I just sprayed it with a bit of lubricant and then used a wire brush to clean it, because a lot of times, so when you have the nylon inserts as well, it just gets stuck in the dirt and then they all start spinning together. If that doesn't happen, you're lucky. If it does, I'll show you what to do to antidote that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it from the bottom. Sometimes we lose the drive shaft nut. Not really totally necessary on this type hub setup. Sometimes when you're pulling it forward, it can pull the drive shaft out if it's totally attached, so I've removed that. And then yeah, you're going to go to the top side the engine bay, and you're just aiming for this nut and washer. That one's a 19mm. Obviously once everything's loose off the bottom, you remove that. Comes down. Your shock absorber on its own looks like this, and then you've just got to obviously clamp the spring, take the spring off, a little rubber protector, and then you've got to change the top mount. This is the old top mount. The bearings have gone on that one. But yeah, you should be able to see what I'm doing on the other side, because we're about to attack that. As for the discs, we have two 12mm nuts, or bolts, sorry. They need to be removed. You obviously need to remove the caliper first, which is this setup. You should see me doing it on the other side. So it's basically fastened with a pin. That just kind of slides onto there. Make sure you lubricate it, a bit of grease when you're putting that back, and it's just a pin that goes into those two holes there. Pin looks like that, and you're just going to knock it out. Only goes in one way. It's also secured with a little safety pin in there. So that needs to come out. Brake pads are going to look like this. These are obviously the new ones. And they're just going to sit there like that. And that's how you're going to remove them. Then you're going to have to remove the actual carrier. So that's the brake pad carrier. These are also 17mm nuts. Am I zoomed in? Why is that so big? As you're removing that, carrier is going to come out, and then the disc will come off. Clean the hub behind it, put on a new disc, and we're about to put the brake pads back. And now you're going to see how the brake pads and the caliper goes back in. The edges, when you're doing new brake pads and discs, a good little trick is to take off the edges, because sometimes when you press the caliper, when you press the brake pedal, caliper squeezes the pads against the discs. Sometimes the inner wears slightly quicker than the edges do. So that's when you end up getting that squeaking noise. So when you've just replaced disc and pads, about a month down the line, it's just making it's breaking. A lot of the time, especially if you get like, depends on the brand anyway. Sometimes it's safer to just take the edges off. Usually using like a grinder wheel or something. Sandpaper's alright. Just take the edges off and then put the new pads in. They should mate together nicely. So take off the edges and all 4 pads. I could put them back, it doesn't happen all the time, just a precautionary. It's a bit of a headache for the customer. They buy the car, I mean, they just paid for their brakes. And a month down the line, they're like, I'm just changing my brake pads. I'm like, this, what did you do? Oh, it's squeaking every time I press it. Trying to prevent that. Anyway, so you're looking for, you see, the edge has gone slightly, so it's bearing now, it's this part,
that's it on the top part, then it's
together.
yeah.
Alright, cool. These are ready to go in, yeah? What we do as well, so I said don't forget to lubricate the slider. I put a bit of maintenance spray. I'm a bit OCD with the maintenance spray. You don't have to use it as much as I do. It's good to have it lubed up. See if we can get this in without no more issues. Like this. Where am I? Where's the lubrication for the pads? Yeah. So I like to do, put a little bit of copper slip on the brake pads, just where it meets the metal, just in case there's any movement. And obviously you use copper grease because it's like anti-seize as well. So it's good with heat. It doesn't melt when it gets hot. Obviously don't put any grease on the friction side, it's just where the metal meets the metal. Just want to put it on the edges, and a little bit where the caliper is going to sit. I'm going to push the caliper back, I think that needs to go in a bit more. Yeah, with the piston, obviously as you push, as the brake pads wear, when you push the pedal, the piston comes out, it squeezes the brake pads, it stops the disc from going round. So as the pads are wearing, because as you see these are worn, they're totally worn, you can see the difference. So the piston comes out and it always wants to remain meeting with the pads. So as the pads wear, the piston comes out more and more, so then to get the new pads on, you've got to push the piston back into its place. You use like a caliper winder, different tools, but big pliers usually can also get the job done. So you're just basically squeezing the inner part until it's quite flush with the outer. That's it. So now it's flush. That should sit on the pads nicely. We're going to sort this rubber out. Good idea. That's that. That just sits like that. Okay, this pin, that's the next one. That's going to come through that hole. Sit there. Gotta say sometimes I probably overuse that spray. That's sitting in its place. Give it a little tap. Make sure it's secure. And I'll make sure you can see the hole, because that's what you're going to be using to lock it. And I'll show you. That's the little hole there. You want to put the pin in. I'll show you what that pin looks like as well. Let's tap that till it's flush. And these pins, sometimes it can be a bit of a headache. So a locking device slots in. That's where the caliper rubber goes. And that's also, that's just here. Just this caliper hose. Just this brake hose. And you just need to cover that one. Look. Needs to sit in there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So obviously there's your disc, there's your pad, and there's your shock absorber. Come sort that rubber out in a minute. Let's go around to the other side so you can see how I remove the brake pads and how I actually remove the shock absorber. Alright, we're gonna do the shock absorber. Have a look. See, this one's weeping as well. So this is it's leaking. So we're gonna get that replaced. We're gonna do the disc and we're gonna do the brake pads. Start on the brake pads first. I'm just lubricating up these. Don't really need to, but they need to be removed to get to the discs. Like I said earlier, I've got to get this pin out. So you get that silly finger. There's that little box. And a hammer. So what I try to free it up, because obviously this pin can get seized. So you just free it up a little bit back and forth, and you're able to wrestle the other little locking pin out like how I did. Then obviously you just want to use a punch tool. It's got to be thin enough. Just knock out the pin. Put the screwdriver in. It should also help you push the piston back. You see the caliper's moving because the piston's going back in. That just helps you take the brake pads out. Next, you want to come to the back of the brake pad assembly, and then you're going to be aiming to take off the actual carrier, this part, and you're going to be removing these two 17mm nuts. If you were doing just the brake pads and disc or whatever, if you're doing just the brake pads, you wouldn't need to remove the carrier. Obviously, it's just opening the caliper. Because we're removing the discs, which is here, you have to remove the caliper and the carrier. Because we're also doing the shock absorber, I'm going to take this rubber out of the where it's holding the shock absorber. Ideally, you need to secure it with something, usually like a bungee cord or cable tie. For now, just from the weight of being on the brake hose, I'm gonna see if I can rest it somewhere. It's not that heavy, or I might just leave it to dangle. No, I'm gonna get a bungee cord. Just to take some of the strain off the brake pipe. It's not the heaviest, so it's not really the biggest deal. I'd usually use the spring, but obviously that's going to be coming down as well, isn't it? I've got to try and improvise something else. Alright, that can stay there. That sensor's broken, I'm guessing it's not doing its job. These rubbers will all need to come out because, like I said, you need to free up the shock absorber. Lubricate the anti-roll bar linkage because, like I say, they can be a bit stubborn trying to come out. That one you want to lubricate. This I need to take off. Remove these 12mm for the discs. Alright, so there's the disc out. Next thing you'll want to do is I'll just clean this area. I'll show you how I clean it. A little bit of maintenance spray. You want to just get a wire brush, just make sure the surface is smooth so when you put on the new disc. Obviously a little bit of brake cleaner. We'll put on the new disc after, but for now we're going to attack the shock absorber. That's these two bolts and nuts, like I said. 17 nut, 15 mil bolt. So obviously you want to hold the back to stop it from spinning. I'm not going to remove this shaft bolt. What I'll do is when I take the hub out, I'll probably try and secure the hub with a cable tie or something. They come out. So yeah, you see the hub drops down now. But sometimes you've got to be wary if you put weight on it, it pulls the drive shaft out of its place. So that's why sometimes you take off the shaft bolt so the shaft is free. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go and cable tie you just for safety. Make it longer. So through that. Slap it through there. Come on. Hold on to the frame as well, so it can't go too far. Alright, that's out the way. So now you've just got shock absorber in your drop link. Got to clean the drop link. As I said, lubricate it. A wire brush. You're trying to get rid of all this filth. And you're hoping that once you zip it off, it just comes off in one. And that's also 17 mil. See, that's what you want to happen. If you're lucky, nut just comes off straight away. If you're not, the link start spinning with it. If that is the case, what you want to do, you want to get this one looks like one of the hexes, either a T. What are we saying T? Either a H5 or 6. And you're gonna fit that in there. You use an open, or you're gonna use a closed end spanner, something like this. So you put that on the nut to hold the nut in place, and then you'll put a hex key or an Allen key or anything hex sized. I think it's 5 or 4 or 6. I can't see it. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but anyway. And you're gonna go clockwise. Then you're gonna be spinning that round with the ratchet while holding it with the spanner. And that's what takes the nut off, and that's how you get them out without damaging them. Okay, so that's out. There you can see already the shock absorber is free. So the last place is going into the engine bay. You can see how it attaches. Shock absorber is there, and it attaches with this bolt, or nut, sorry, and this washer. That's a 19 mil. So I'm about to zip that out, and then that shock absorber should drop, and I'll show you how to replace the spring. Same again with this as well. Sometimes this can spin. So the way I remedy it is I use a vice grip and I clamp. I'll show you when it's out what I do to remedy it from spinning. So to get to this top nut, top of the top mount, 90 mil socket. Ideally you get a wobbly extension so you can still reach it with your impact wrench. So you want to hold the shock absorber, because if it comes straight out, the shock absorber should fall. So now that's spinning. Zoom on in on that. You can see it's come off a little and it's come to the lock place now, and the lock is doing its thing. So when the nut's spinning, the whole shock absorber is spinning. So what we do, grab a vice grip. It's not that advised if you're still using the shock absorber because it can scratch the strut, but this is scrap now. So you're just going to lift up the cover and then aim for the actual strut itself. So you just grip that with a grip. Now the middle, you can't actually turn, you're controlling it. So you should be able to zip off that nut now without it spinning. So come back up here. Okay, so the nut comes off. And then the shock absorber drops out of here. So what happens is, obviously, shock absorber comes through that hole, and this washer and nut holds it in place. What happens is, this is a locking nut. It's got like a nylon insert, so it actually can't come off. So when you're turning it now, instead of the nut on its own spinning, it's gripping the whole shock absorber, so the whole middle spinning, so that's what you're getting. So then if you grip it with the vice grip, it helps you to just take the nut off. Same with this nut as well. And when you're gonna tighten it, sometimes it can spin with the whole strut. Just use the vice grip and you should be able to hold it in place. Alright, so we're gonna keep the spring because the spring is fine, it's in good condition. This is the same procedure if you want to replace the spring. If the spring's cracked, get the shock out, take off the mounts, and then replace the spring. But we're going to keep the spring, depending on the state of this. This one looks fine from the outside, but we'll see, we've got a new one. And then we're going to obviously replace the actual strut. This spring is compressed, so it's been forced down. If you was to now loosen that nut, you probably wouldn't even tell you how high that would spring.
Sure.
So it's quite dangerous. If you haven't done it before, probably want to seek professional advice or whatever they say. But yeah, it can be dangerous. Do not ever remove this top bolt if the spring is not broken and it's not being compressed. There are easier ways. Outside, we're going to be using the spring clamps, and it's just basically securing the spring. So once you, oh wow, it's here. So once you remove the top mount now, these are going to keep the spring in place. Yeah, pause it from here. I'll take it off now.
So I carry recording?
Yeah, record it.
Alright.
Okay, why is this one like this?
This can part on this one.
Mm-hmm.
This can part already.
So like I say, you want to secure this.
This tire.
Like I say, you want to secure the spring clamps.
What is it?
Just got to try and get it in the ideal place, as close to the bottom rung and as close to the top rung as you can. And yeah, you'll see. So you can see the clamps pulling the spring down, so that's relieving some of the pressure. And yeah, this is where the spring ends. Where is it? Yeah, right there. That's the last rung. So we need to push it down a little before we remove this. And another thing that I like to do, just for safety, is mark it. Although I think this is already turned. This one would have been like that. Yeah, that should do. It's in free. That one's slightly off, but still safe. And I want to zip this nut off. That was a 27 anyway. 27. 24. 27. Yeah, a deep 27 mil socket. Alright, so that's off. And then basically, like I said, you're removing the top mount, you're removing the cover and the spring and all that. But the same way that's sitting on this shock absorber is the way I need it to sit on the new shock absorber. So I'm just gonna take them off in the order that I've keep them in the order I've taken them off. And you've got the top mount with the bush. This can still be reused. Like if you haven't got a replacement one, you just put the balls back, put some grease in, and just make sure that they're sitting. But we're just going to replace it. Remove the spring, remove the cover. And it's going to be a reverse of removal. Put the cover on.
You know you have it left and right.
Yeah. Yeah, we have left and right. Yeah, make sure it's the right one. Obviously we're changing both, so I've done the right side. You can see this is knackered as well. That's not what you want. What you want is that. That's an example of a finish. Come back up. Alright. Get that. Put the spring back. Make sure you remember how you've taken off the spring. Because a lot of times I've come across, and I've got a video of me where I've come across a spring what was just being put on upside down. The car was still driving, but it's making a rubbing noise when they turn. You can see it looks quite similar. This one they've marked it. Just make sure you know. And also, got to know where it sits on the actual shock absorber itself. We would use that if we were using it, but we're going to replace it.
Time.
Alright. Where's our cup? Yeah, so the cup. Yeah, you want this to be sitting where it was. Obviously it's a little lopsided, so you're just going to move it around before you tighten it. That goes on there. How did I mark that one?
I'll give up my one, but if you get this, you can get one for me, this one.
If I see it.
I can get this one.
Storage stuff, man.
You change the bearing.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Hay fever season.
Alright, cool. So this is how it, that's pretty much it. And you've obviously got to try and make sure the spring's set underneath the cup before you tighten it. Similar to this. And yeah, you want to get it back on. When it's tight, the clamps are now going to be safe to remove. The spring will rise slowly, but it's not going to go past the cup. Cool. Obviously you want to release your spring clamps one by one. Make sure you do it safely. Just do it gradually instead of all. And then that's your shock absorber. Should be ready to go back on the car. New nut as well.
Yeah.
So just going to feed that through. And that hole.
Finally, we have to play the club.
You have to make the leaflets, the minute. You have to make the leaflets.
Where am I going to see? Where? No, I went to one place there now. want to go back to the
It doesn't even need any colours.
Eh?
It doesn't need any stickers.
Why?
It's obvious what it is.
I want to put the on the body. I want to put recovery and my number on it.
You can do, but I'm saying I don't think that's the first thing. I say you can do, but I don't think that's the first thing.
What is the first thing?
When the flyer's getting attention. You think?
We've got to give out the leaflets and the cards to the garages and everybody else. And Gumtree.
Yeah.
I know this guy that was doing recovery, and everything was just Gumtree and Google. But you have to pay like a certain amount to stay on the top of the page on Gumtree.
Okay.
Google as well.
So it's like charging for advertising kind of thing. Or priority.
On where?
No, I'm just thinking like on Gumtree, like charging
Yeah, that's right.
for priority. So they put your number or your will be at the top of the page. So every time you click into or you log in, you'll see your details.
Alright, cool. Are you recording?
Oh yeah. Also,
No, I didn't know if he was. Basically, reverse removal. I'm not going to bore you with it. Obviously, you're going to put your drop link back in, them 2 bolts, and nuts there, and everything that came off has to go in the way it came off. Alright, that's it. Hope that's helpful.